Libra, which is now Diem from Facebook, which is now Meta, has limped along since its initial and loud and splashy announcement in June 2019. And it seems as though this one might be the final nail in the coffin. They're talking about returning funds to early investors, selling assets to do so. Seems like this thing might be real. The death of Libra has long been rumored. We saw some positive momentum out of the project with the launch of the Novi wallet and a trial run involving not the Diem stablecoin, but Paxos's USDP stablecoin in terms of remittances between the US and Guatemala in a beta rollout. But this reporting, if it holds true, suggests that they're in the fire sale stages of putting this project down. So very crazy to see June 2019, this was going to be the hottest thing since sliced bread from a major company in the space. We all know what unfolded after that. Huge backlash from regulators in the US and abroad. Partners dropped the project, and now after a couple of rebrands and attempts to kickstart the thing, if Bloomberg's reporting holds true, it looks like Diem might be on the way out. So interesting to reflect on this project and some of the pitfalls that it encountered along the way. I'm going to throw this straight to Naomi, just for the regulatory lessons that Libra/Diem can offer.
Absolutely. There are a lot of lessons here. So I think this kind of naivety that Facebook had when they launched into this. I mean, David Marcus, who led the project, he was a crypto OG. Like, you can read about him in Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper. Like, he was there in the early days. So this is not someone who's just like some Facebook official executive who's just like, oh yeah, let's cash in on this. This is someone who was around very early on, who kind of understood why Bitcoin in particular was important. But then there's this naivety where it's like, okay, if we create this decentralized consortium whereby we'll get Visa, we'll get Uber, and we'll get all these different companies. We'll all be in control of it. So it's not a Facebook thing. We're all going to manage it, and then it's decentralized, and then it kind of fits into this ethos. Also, it's being like each node is being managed by these very competent, successful companies. Like, in theory, it sounds really great if you know nothing about the history of computing currencies in the United States. And so it was obvious that, if you have one of these central organizations like a Facebook, like an Uber, like a Visa that already has this centralized focal point for regulatory scrutiny, and then you say, oh, and now we're diving into competing currencies. Now we're going to create something that's going to rival the United States Central Bank. Obviously, the government's not going to allow that. Like, it doesn't matter if the underlying protocol is split amongst all these different companies. If these companies themselves provide this target for the government to, put a lever on, and here's the lesson, right? The government is never going to go after you for the thing that they want to go after you for. They're going to pressure all the other things that they have control over to force your hand in the things that they don't. So even though they might not have specific control over any of these particular nodes in this, delegated proof of stake ecosystem or whatever it was, they have total control over whether or not Facebook's going to get hit with an antitrust lawsuit, whether or not Uber is going to have a regulatory crackdown, whether or not Visa is going to, be regulated out of existence. So they can absolutely, regulate out of existence this entire project just by focusing on those different companies. I mean, it seems that the only way to do this really is to decentralize past that. First of all, you can't be part of this existing centralized company and then delve into the space of currencies, because they'll just shut down your existing company. You have to not have anything on the table, really. You have to have nothing to lose so that you have the freedom to delve into this world that they really don't like and not fear that everything you've built over your entire lifetime is going to be shut down. So I think that's a lesson here. But Will, I'll throw it to you for your take.
Yeah, quick aside, I'd say like the Winklevoss boys are feeling pretty good this morning that this happened. But the main point I think here is just for some context. This story matters because of what Facebook getting into crypto could have meant for the entire industry. If you go back into the price books and look at 2019, there was a mini bull market and Bitcoin broke $14,000 per coin briefly. And a lot of it had to do with what Facebook was doing, the fact that they were moving into the crypto space, Facebook being probably the most important tech company of the last decade in many people's minds. They gave a lot of legitimacy to cryptocurrency, and then moving into the space was definitely reflected in the price at that time. And of course, it was broken down in parts. Zuckerberg went before Congress. They kind of spat on the project, and then more regulators got involved. And it seems like this newest reporting says that even the Federal Reserve was like, you guys aren't doing this. And now we see that the whole project is gone. They're scrapping it. They're returning money to investors. To me, it tells you a lot about exactly what you're saying, Naomi. Regulators have an interest in keeping money under the guise of the state, and they're going to go after projects that they deem credible and worthwhile to go after. Some of the other things that are out there right now, like private stable coins like USDC or Tether, they've looked into these, but they haven't really been as aggressive. And I think because there's a credibility gap, right? And they're not really a risk. Facebook is a household name, and Facebook's tech abilities are also well known. If you look back through election headlines and stuff like that, they took it very seriously. They haven't taken these other private stablecoins very seriously, but I think they might start doing that going forward if they continue to get larger. So there's definitely some long tail thoughts about this story that have more to do than just with Facebook or Meta. Zach, I'll kick it up to you for last thoughts.
I got a free Jen because that's what the people want, and her hand was up first, but I definitely wanted to jump in after that. So Jen, take it away.
Just echoing a lot of what Naomi and Will already said. I mean, this just shows that if you get on the wrong side of regulators, they will make your life a living hell until it just really doesn't make sense to do what you want to do, no matter how innovative or how much your customers want the project. I do think it is the right decision for them to close up shop. You know, it wasn't working for them. I think them focusing more on the metaverse and talks of NFT plays feels more in the Facebook ecosystem anyways. And so I think if they can sell off their assets, get money back to their investors, and focus on their metaverse play, it just makes sense as a business decision. But Zach, off to you.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I think like a native fungible token within this metaverse thing would make a lot of sense for them. So the idea that this is a cog that is not going to be able to be placed into their metaverse vision is pretty interesting. But yeah, I think the lesson to me is just that it was a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like these lawmakers weren't especially in tune with what the tokenomics of this project were, but they were in tune with how easy it is to score political points at the cost of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook at a time when they've had plenty of missteps along the way and they're not held in high regard by the voting public. So I think that was definitely an early example of if this was they were a doxed developer, right? And so there was ways to exert that pressure and that power on them to constrain and maybe ultimately cripple fatally this project that, to its credit, was pretty ambitious and pretty smart out the gate, like on the white paper, really interesting stuff. But the fact that it had Facebook on the back made it a big target, an easy punching bag, and I think the politicians won this one.